Great. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this panel. I like to call it. It's a webinar, but I like it. This is a conversation with two ladies, two EQ certified here in 6 Seconds Europe, Olena and Lisa. Welcome. And thank you for joining me in this conversation. I'd like to share with you a few slides before asking a few questions to Lisa and Olena. So let me start. As you all know, let me go full screen first. As you all know, what we want to share today is professional learning in schools. And Olena and Lisa will talk with us about their own projects and how they did it in their own countries. Olena in the Ukraine and Lisa in the UK. What was really relevant for us, for all of us today to share with you, is that social and emotional learning is probably one of the most important programs, processes, and methodologies that nowadays could face these important challenges that all of us, all the educators, the students, the parents, the schools are living. And here we put only a few of these challenges. How can we have technocracy where selfies are really, for example, so prevalent among students, and not only, where the dropout and the low retention is really statistically very, very high all around Europe. And we know that one of the most important challenges for educators is also the classroom behaviors. Then we will also mention some contexts of, let's say, degradation, and especially today with Olena here from Ukraine, also contexts of war and how this can affect our students and us as educators. One of the most important things that also we want to share with you is that is part of the research. So neuroscience tells us that we feel and therefore we learn. And so Imordino Yang shared with us that we only think deeply about things we care about. So when we talk about social and emotional learning, we really talk about this. We need to connect our emotions to the experience of learning. Students and us today, for example, if we want to learn, we need to feel engaged. We need to feel the curiosity of learning something new. Only in that moment, our brain will learn. So the connection between emotions and the process of learning is very tight. And especially if we want to think in a complex way. Complex means also solving complex problems. So emotions drive cognitive learning and also decision making. And that's why through social and emotional learning, we can integrate emotions inside this process, the process of choice and the process of learning. And the emotional processes help learners apply knowledge in real situation. So when we connect the interest of the students to their real life through the practices, the strategies of social and emotional learning, our students can better learn. And we say can learn in the long and maintain their learning in the long term. This is why in the 70s, our founder, Annabelle Jensen and Karen McCann, they designed a curriculum to take social and emotional learning to schools. And this curriculum is called Self Science. And it is a specific methodology through our development programs, and in particular, a program that is called the Q Educator. What we also did it has been to connect the social and emotional learning curriculum and methodology to what is required today, and especially to these 17 Sustainable Development Goals that somehow the United Nations offered to all the countries in the world in order to improve this planet. And so 6 Seconds integrated the 17 Sustainable Development Goals into the curriculum, into self-science, and all the lessons for students and for the educators are also connected to achieving these goals. So when educators tell us, well, you know, it's social emotional learning, it's something that I need to add to my program, it's something in addition, it's something that sometimes I can tell you I have no time to teach, for example. What we reply is that social and emotional learning, it's not something that we add to the plate, it's the plate. So it's the way in which we support educators and students to better learn. And we support educators to teach with emotional intelligence. This is also social emotional learning. It is not only to design lessons around empathy, optimism, emotional literacy. It is, and these are the skills, right, of social emotional learning, but it's also supporting the teachers, the educators, to design their own lessons about their own subject with emotional intelligence. And this is the methodology. And so saving time, actually increasing the interest in students and their engagement. What we know from research is that social emotional learning programs improve actually academic results and also retention and the pro-social behaviors. And they actually reduce the misbehaving of students, especially bullying. And that's why it's so relevant today to introduce programs in our schools. So let's start now our conversation around the projects then that these two ladies and colleagues introduced in more than two, actually, different schools. And so I'd like to, first of all, ask Lisa and Olena to introduce themselves, and then I'll move on with some questions. Please, Olena or Lisa, just a few words about you.
Shall I go first?
Please.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much, Ilaria, for the introduction. So my name's Lisa, and I started out actually as a chartered accountant, but then realized that my noble goal was working with people. And back in 2013, I did a lot of self-reflection and moved into coaching as a career, and have since become a leadership coach. And I work with individuals in teams so they can be their best. And more recently, following the pandemic, I have transitioned more into doing work with schools to support the teachers and indeed the whole community in helping them with their well-being and supporting their well-being, sort of recognizing that actually to learn and to be your best and to perform at your best, actually you need to be in the best state of mind. So it's sort of helping them get into the right emotional state so they can access the learning and perform at their best. So that's a little bit about me. I hope that's enough.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. Olena.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you. And Ilaria, thank you for introduction. I'm a coach, ICF coach. I'm a trainer. I'm a certified consultant of vital signs by 6 Seconds, and also EQ practitioner. I am from Kyiv, Ukraine, and my background is business. I came to education. Basically, my background is a teacher, but I
True,
working
exactly. You
in
shared this with
business
me.
for many, many years, and then come back to the roots, so to say. And I'm joining the projects and my partners with whom we're working on changing the education system in Ukraine.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And today, really, we want to start with a very simple, but we feel fundamental questions. And if you have comments in the chat, please type them. And the question is, what do you think are the needs that teachers and schools have nowadays? The needs that you collected over these years, actually, and recent months working in schools. Olena.
Okay, I will present you some figures. This data was collected by one of the leading NGOs from Ukraine. They are working with a great number of schools and teachers all over Ukraine. I will tell more about them later in my presentation. And so they collect this data from all over Ukraine, and what teachers say and schools say. They say that around 40%, there is a need of skills and psychological safety and for themselves or for other people in case of stress or burnout. 30% say that they need the development of partnership between students, parents, and teachers. 20% were talking about the necessity of professional development, methodologically, as well as in subject they teach. 11% say about that it's very important to create a safe educational environment, both psychological and physical. And it's more related to the situation in our country. 6% of people said that we need the algorithm of how to do in extreme situation and anti-mining training. So basically, this is the information I have from my partners from this NGO.
Thank you, Olena. And I think that of course, your country is in an extreme situation, and that is, and thank you for being here, most of, especially. And but I think that all around Europe, in this case, we can relate to that, to the need, as you said, of psychological safety and especially trust. And we will share this also later, because you both used a tool, an assessment that has at the core trust. Lisa.
Yeah, so really building on what Olena said there. So from my own experience within schools, you know, I have 3 children who have all been through the school system, and also, you know, are working with about 6 or 7 schools myself at the moment. And my experience at the moment is that schools are challenged more and more in they've got a limit of time, they've got a limit of resource and money, and yet they're being faced with far more challenges. There are more challenging behaviours within the pupils. There are more challenging behaviours actually with the parent community as well. And they're not necessarily skilled to manage emotions. So I feel that there is a need for teachers to have maybe some more training or support in this, and also to manage their own well-being, because it's an incredibly challenging environment and they're having to do more with less. I mean, the education system, for any sort of issue that's impacting us as a society, you know, there's almost the go-to is to, well, let's give it to the teachers, you know, and we need to bring this into the education system. So teachers are trying to be, you know, all things to all people, and yet they don't necessarily have that as a skill. And, you know, and my sense is that they need a bit more support. And also they had a really challenging time through the pandemic. They were, you know, one of the few industries that had to carry on going. you know.
Absolutely. I think together the parents also, and during the pandemic, families and the educators really, and the students, of course, that they had to go through the, learning from home and teaching from home. It has been, I think, very, very tough. Definitely.
And that sort of hybrid, you know, and there were situations at one point where they were delivering it in person, and they were also delivering it, you know, on Zoom or whatever their mode of communication was. And they were having to do even more. And then they were going to have to follow up with kids that maybe were school avoiders or whatever. And even that, I think, has increased as well, in the anxiety levels and the emotions within schools do seem to be running higher. There are far more children, I don't know if this is the case all around the world, but certainly in my experience, there are far more children that have a need to access more mental health support. And, you know, and it's like, and how do we support those children to the point that they get the support? And teachers are almost there holding the space for these students until they get that support. And it's very, very difficult.
Definitely. And this also was thinking while you were sharing, Lisa, of the situation, Olena, of the schools in Ukraine, where not only previously they had the pandemic, and so they had to go on the internet in order to teach, but still in some schools, and one of these is part of your project, they are still teaching online because of the war. So really, I think we need to consider that the world and Europe in general, we are really facing challenging times, and educators are really struggling, and we need to find ways, strategies, and support, as you were saying, to equip in terms of well-being first, and you both focused on this for educators and to support them, then to support the students. So that's why today I really wanted to focus on your two projects about this. And again, what you did, and now we will focus more into the details of your two projects. It was starting from measuring the situation inside schools or inside the classroom in order to then design, together with all the stakeholders inside the schools, some support for the teachers, support for the students, and even for the parents, as in the case of Lisa. In order to do what? In order to listen to all the voices, to reply to those needs that you, Olena, collected, and through the NGO with whom you worked, and you, Lisa, directly in the field with the discussion, the conversation that you had directly with the teachers and the parents. So let's go to the two projects that you carried out. What process and tools did you use in your project? And please also describe the process in general, of course, and the project itself. And so what process and tools you use to integrate social and emotional learning? Maybe Lisa, you can go first now.
Okay, if you've got my slide there, Ilaria, that would be...
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of an overview as to what I did. So I'm currently working with a primary school. So that's for children from about age 4 to 11. And so it's a local primary school. It's a 2-form entry. And there was an acknowledgement within the school that their strategy for the current year that we're in, was that they wanted to support and invest in their staff, because there is a lot of staff that are leaving the profession and are burning out and all of that. And they recognized that actually they couldn't necessarily pay them anymore, but they wanted to invest in them and look after their well-being, recognizing that actually for the staff to be able to support the well-being of the students, they needed to be modeling well-being themselves. So it's very much focused on well-being. So it was an all of school program for all of the staff. So not just the teachers, it was, you know, the maintenance, the catering, the admin, everyone involved. So it was also an opportunity to bring everyone together in the school. So we kicked it off. So it's a whole year program, and we kicked it off with an EVS questionnaire. So we surveyed all the staff and the parents. We chose not to survey the children because we felt they were too young.
Let me just share the tool so people can see what it's about, and then I'll go back to your slide. This is the model, right? This is the climate survey, the EVS survey that you shared with the whole school fundamentally.
Yeah. So basically, as you can see here with the model, so there are various questions, and you basically get a score within the 5 behaviors, or the trust, commitment, growth, accountability, and connection, and how they are linked to the outcomes, the 4 outcomes, which are the vision, the school, the people, and the action. So we did that at the outset. So that sort of kicked it off before the first term in September. So if you can go back to the other side, thank you.
Yes.
And then we had an all-staff inset day. So we got the EVS questionnaire, we got some data, and then we had an all-staff inset day, which involved an introduction to EQ. But it was a whole day. It also gave the staff an opportunity to receive a little bit of the data that came out of the EVS questionnaire. And through reviewing some of the key data, they were asked to contribute to the wellbeing strategy for the school. So what would they like to keep? What would they like to start doing? What would they like to stop doing? And, you know, and I'll sort of talk about this as we go through. So it was the process of looking at that data and feeling involved that actually started to connect them all. So we had people working together that worked in different areas of the school and different year groups and all the rest of it. So there was a real feeling of everyone coming together on that common goal of creating a really good school. So that was a really good setup. And then we went in and we did a very simple positivity challenge on WhatsApp. So it didn't require a lot of time. In schools, they're really strapped for time. So sometimes you just need to do a little taster and sort of have a little connection. So each day they'd get a text that they had to respond to, but it would literally take about a minute. So it was a really good.
That's great. This is really easy, and everyone can do it. Yeah, can contribute.
Yeah. And then term 2. So on that first inset day, they were invited to sign up to other workshops and the challenge indeed. And also if they wanted to have a say debrief. So rather than us deciding who was to get it, people self-volunteered for it. So we got the people that were most motivated to engage. And so in term 2, we then did some say debrief. So say is the leadership report for anyone that isn't familiar with it. So it's the 6 seconds emotional intelligence questionnaire. And so I had a one-to-one debrief with 16 staff. And that enabled them to embed some of the learning from term 1 to them personally and to talk about anything that had come up. And then we had a managing anxiety masterclass, and we delivered that in smaller groups. So it was a little bit more intimate, and it enabled people to share a little bit more about what was causing anxiety and how they wanted to manage that. And we also ran that same masterclass for the parents. And part of the reasoning behind that was to try and get everyone in the whole community having the same language and understanding, you know, why we're doing this and how we're supporting each other. So that was that. And then we had another all-staff inset day that was building on the introduction to EQ that we'd already done. So looking at recognizing our patterns and being more intentional. So working on those particular EQ skills. So that was term 2. Then we're in term 3 now, and we're now going to do, so moving on. So we did the say debriefs with the 16 staff, and we also at the same time got the brain stars and the brain talent questionnaire, which is a 1-pager, much more simple in a way than the say leadership report, but we're running a workshop with that for those 16 staff. to enable them to dig another little bit deeper. So it's another layer of learning to understand themselves and how they can maybe adapt how they're using their brain to suit the situation. So they're doing that. And we're currently in the middle of another WhatsApp challenge. And this one's about creativity. So it's enabling them to think differently. So they get, again, another little text every day, inviting them to do something to challenge the way they typically think or act. And then in the final half term, we're going to be doing a managing conflict masterclass, again, to all the smaller groups, but also to the parents. And so you can sort of see on the right hand side there how we've used the different 6 seconds tools, which have been really, really impactful, because it gives them something to go away with. It's like, this is where I am now. And then we check in on a regular basis with the senior leadership team to reflect. So we're constantly going through the 6 seconds way of engaging, activating, reflecting, and then tweaking it and doing the same again. So it's a constant.
Fantastic. And it lasted, the first term and second term lasted a few months, right? Yeah. So you plan to have probably a full year on this first phase of the project, and then maybe there will be some other actions in the future, right, Lisa?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and then another thing that I didn't actually put on the slide is that a part of this, they also identified, because they wanted to make it a whole school project. So obviously it started with all the staff. Then they invited me to speak to the parents, but they've also invited me to work with, they've appointed some of their year 5 students. So year 5 are about age 10, 9, 10. They've appointed wellbeing ambassadors. So they have 4 students who are being ambassadors for the students, and they are running little workshops or assemblies about well-being, and they're starting with the physical well-being things, but they're also starting to think about emotional well-being as well. So it really has become a whole of school program, which is really fantastic, really powerful, and it's amazing to see how it's changing. But we'll cover that a little bit in a bit. So, any questions on that? Or
absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. Exactly. They asked you, Kylie asked about EVS, and as I said, EVS is part of a 6-second certification, and so can be used only if a person is EVS certified. And whoever is interested, please send me an email. I shared that in the chat. But please, if you have any other questions for Lisa in this case, and Olena, please ask. So Kylie, what does a program like this cost the school? Actually, of course, with Lisa and Olena, we will talk about that. Of course, the tools have a cost, but very often what a school can do is to receive funds or direct the funding that they have into these programs. So I know that Lisa and Olena also worked this way. And the school found, let's say, funding. I'm thinking of Olena in this case, and now I'll let you, Olena, talk about your project, where, for example, the schools in this case were 2 winners, and so they received our support as 6 seconds, and yours, Olena, using the tools for free in this case. So, Olena, please.
Okay, I will start my story. And I mentioned already my partner, and I'm ready to present my partner at camp. You see the logo here on this slide. You can please the next slide, Ilaria.
Yes.
Yes. At Camp is one of the leading NGOs in Ukraine. They are working, and their goal is to make Ukrainian teachers happy and effective in their professional activities and overall in life. They are providing a lot of different activities, conferences, education, events for the teachers all over Ukraine. Next slide, please. And I was working with them as the organizational coach. I'm certified for of vital signs for different assessment tools, and as an organizational coach, I made the internal audit, and we used team vital signs and leadership vital signs assessments. And this time, EdCamp is implementing the project which is called Change in 7 months. This is the project for schools. They applied for, the idea was to change, outside and inside. And they applied for this project all over. I think that it was more than 1,000 schools all over Ukraine. At the end, there were 2 winners, 2 schools, and one school is located in the western part of Ukraine. I would say more or less safety region. And the second is located in the central part of Ukraine, near Kyiv. And this school and this territory was occupied, it was under occupation. And after this occupation, of course, they really need rebuilding after this missiles attack. So what the winners get in this project, Change in 7 months, resources for school building and renovation, right to go through public accreditation, which is very important now, and opportunity to upgrade skills for the entire educational family, to work on strategy for development together with experts. And this is the point where we can, where I basically presenting the this TVS, LVS assessment, and the general director of EdCamp says, okay, do you have something for educator specialists? And yes, we have it. We have EVS. This is how EVS comes in to this project. And next slide, please. So there is first stage of the project where the project is in progress now, and the first phase has 3 stages. We are on the first stage now. What we made EVS assessment for 2 schools online. I have visited the schools. Interesting, because they were really, it was a kind of celebration when we come with EdCamp, a lot of, people from community, from city administration, student partners, really like a celebration, because they're celebrating their winning this project. Then we already have EVC report generated. We have this, and we are in the point of preparing it for discussion for the second stage. Yeah, we would like to debrief it with EdCamp team first, because this is their project and they are key stakeholders in this project. We also added some questions additionally to AVS, getting the AVS results. We also added some questions to expand more on specific issues and to get more comments on these issues. And the third stage will be the debrief for the schools and coaching, and then we will make this action planning for the next month.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I want the participants to know that you also did a great job with translation. So because, maybe a lot of you here work with people in English, and maybe they, or you are in the UK, or your clients or students are they speak English, but in, of course, all the rest of the countries in Europe, we have our own language, and our tools need, of course, the translation. And so this is an important part, because when we work in business, and you both of you, that it's easier because all the companies around the world, they use English. And so when we bring them, that we take some tools there, it's not a real or a big deal. But in schools it's completely different. So that's why the more we use our tools, the more we are able to offer this in the language of the country where this is deployed. And in this case, in Ukrainian. So there was the translation process. And so the educators were able to take in Ukrainian the assessment in this case. So thank you, Olena, for this.
Thank you, Ilaria, because you're supporting a lot with this. I'm very happy that we will have Ukrainian translation due to this project.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why, so for us, you know, we didn't have a lot of programs or EVS programs in Ukraine. And so this was probably the first one. And so in a very fast way, we decided, well, let's do it, let's translate. And in this case, Olena translated, because we absolutely wanted to take EVS to those schools, and so it was, and so we really hope that these people will receive the best from these insights, and then all the work that you will describe, Olena, in the second part of the year, because also in your project there will be a second phase that will be in September, right?
Yeah, in September we will continue with SAY.
Exactly.
We will continue with SAY. It's also the assessment tool and
the individual assessments for each
assessment.
Educator. Yeah, as Lisa did, actually. The two projects are quite similar, because you started with this overview, the climate survey, identifying the actions for well-being for you, Lisa, and in general, Olena, all the possible actions to be activated inside the two schools, and then you will continue with the SAY assessments for the teachers in order to develop and equip them with the EQ competencies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, can you summarize a little bit the impact of your projects? Lisa, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got my slide there, Ilaria, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, so I summarized really the key points. So I recently had, I think a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I had a check-in with the senior leadership team and specifically asked them to give me the feedback for today. And these are some of the key things that I've just jotted down here. So the key thing really is that top one is the staff are feeling cared for. They're feeling valued, you know, they feel that this really is an investment in them as human beings first, before they're a teacher. So this isn't about or staff member. So it isn't just about them being better at school. This is about supporting them as a human being. And that's had an enormous impact, because they're, you know, rather than feeling that it's, you know, sometimes can be a worthless task, they feel as if they're not appreciated. So, you know, that sense of feeling cared for has been quite significant. And they've really enjoyed being able to contribute to the wellbeing strategy of the school. It's also created that common language in that people are actually talking about their emotions and being more open about it, rather than just pushing on through and having to be resilient. It's enabled them, it's given them permission to talk about their feelings and how they're experiencing it. And that in itself has had quite a big impact. And that sort of improved relationships, greater engagement. And actually in that first term, so the Christmas term, they had more people signing up to support the whole of school projects. You know, at the end of the Christmas term, there's always a play and a fair and all the other sorts of things. And they have identified more people are putting their names into the hat to do those sorts of things, and actually going on staff outings. You know, you might sort of think, oh, well, everyone wants to do that, but actually not necessarily. So there has been more engagement, and the staff have reported a significant improvement in their overall well-being. They're feeling more connected with all of them. So rather than it being just the teachers with the teachers or just the admin staff, everyone's feeling more connected with each other, and that's helping them feel more energized, focused and balanced. And they have actually said that they're noticing some shifts in the students as well. So it's obviously, you know, emotions are contagious, and so it is having that impact. And also it's had an impact on their whole school strategy. So some of the things that came up in that very first inset day, they're starting to put them into place. And that's having an impact because, you know, it's not sort of, people are feeling that they're being heard, and actually it is changing things. And yes, it might be, you know, slow. It's a bit like, you know, the big ship that you're trying to shift 1 degree, but actually they can see that the ship is being shifted that 1 degree, and that will have a knock-on effect. So, you know,
Absolutely.
significant. And, you know, and sort of thinking about the next steps. So for me, one of the biggest impacts, you know, that's all really, really great. But the big outcome for me is that they've actually signed up for another year.
Amazing. Yeah. And
So,
you were saying that probably you will do a post EVS in order to measure the thriving, the safety, the learning. So
yeah.
how the outcomes and the drivers of that model have improved over this year work with, you know, with well-being. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the thing that they're quite interested in. So I think there's another slide, Ilaria.
Yes.
So moving on to next year, so they're wanting to expand it. And like you say, they want to redo the EVS questionnaire to see, well, okay, what impact has it had on the community so we can measure it. Schools are really keen to have data, you know, because that reinforces being able to put the budget in for the following year if they could show it's having an impact. So, you know, so yeah, we're going to be doing the EVS. We're going to be repeating the SAY to again measure what's the impact on those individuals, you know, what's changed, how have they grown themselves in an EQ sense. And they have plans to roll out, to do more with the students, to do more with the parents, to do more with the community. And talking about, I know some people have actually asked questions about the funding.
Yeah.
And there's also an interest with, you know, I work with local businesses as well, to get businesses to sponsor doing these sorts of programs in schools. So sort of to build that connection, because the schools ultimately are training the business's future employees. So
Absolutely.
if we can create those connections and get the businesses to be invested in the schools, you know, it sort of joins the dots, because, you know, when you talked at the very beginning about what the issues are that some of the schools are experiencing, that sometimes there is a disconnect between the outcomes, you know, getting your exams and, well, what does that mean for life? And if we can get those businesses more connected with the schools, then hopefully the students will be able to see the relevance of, you know, getting a maths qualification or an English qualification, because they can see how it fits into world beyond school. So
Absolutely.
really exciting.
And for both, yeah, and sorry for this, also connecting this to the funding again, for both projects, for Olena and Lisa, we also offer the 6 seconds grants, 6 seconds grant program that is about funding. So 6 seconds offer for free the credits for some assessments. In this case, all the SAY assessments, individual assessments, are covered by 6 seconds, because the schools accepted to kind of write a case study. Mm-hmm. So the idea for us is, well, we are absolutely willing to support and cover the costs of our assessments if we can offer then at the end to our community a case study. And we are here today also for this reason, because Olena and Lisa are kind of testimonials of what they did. And so these kind of projects can be replicated. And so when the 2 case studies, the Ukrainian one and the one in the UK will be ready, they will be published on our website in order for all of you to copy somehow, or to do the same and get in contact with Olena and Lisa, and then maybe replicate this in other schools around Europe. Mm-hmm. Olena, your project outcomes.
Okay, great. Yeah, can you, yeah, click
all of them?
Yeah, I can share. I would like to share, because the project is in progress now. So we do not have this long-term impact. We can't measure it at the moment, but what we can say, I will give you the words one of the director of the school. After she was taking, she took the survey, and she said, I was waiting so much for someone to ask me these questions. And they really start to think about the importance of school climate, how it impacts, for instance, academic learning, psychological safety. And the more important even that they start to think about us as the whole team, student, parent, teachers. And this is about the new culture of collaboration. Absolutely. This is very, this is the transformational thing in the schools. It's about a really new culture of collaboration. Yeah, this is shortly the project outcomes.
Sorry, I was typing, trying to reply to Helen. Helen, thank you for your question. Then we will reply to all the questions in the chat, but I think it's important. So the EVS, actually, the EVS is meant for, let's say, K-12, so really for schools, because all the items are tied to that. But absolutely, we have also another tool that is the OVS, that is for organizations in general, and colleges. I think could be considered probably more similar in that sense to organization that can be business or NGO or universities, and so colleges. So absolutely, the climate survey is one of the most important assessments, and so assessing the climate in university is fundamental. And so thank you for this question. And again, I don't think, Lisa or Elena, you tried the EVS at university or the OVS.
Not yet.
And you worked with the organizational vital signs, Lisa, right? Also somehow, well, you both with the TVS, but I don't know if you used the OVS.
No, I didn't. I used the EVS. I did use the TVS in another school, but not in this one.
Not
exactly.
Not
but
yet.
Helen, not yet, exactly, but absolutely. One of the two tools can be used in colleges and universities. So, any suggestion or recommendation for the public here, for the participants? And one of the questions was from Lorraine, asking, how do you market your program to school? And so one of the suggestion and recommendation could be answering to this question, how you marketed your project and your programs to the schools, so that you approached and then you worked with, or they approached you. So
yeah, I mean, I think from my experience with emotional intelligence, it's very much a relationship type program. So I don't tend to market, necessarily through, the traditional marketing channels. It's very much word of mouth. So it's about the connections that I have. I've got 3 children of my own who have obviously been through the school system, and through the businesses that I'm working with, I sort of connect with them. And it's like, are you involved with schools? Are your children at schools? Are you a parent, a governor, a trustee, or whatever? And so that is, so to get an introduction, so it's like a warm introduction to a school. So that's one way. And then with the schools that I'm working with, so I do mentoring in a school, and I work with the senior leaders in a number of schools. And I sometimes start with some leadership coaching, and then I build from there. Then when I'm already in working with, the senior leadership teams, then gradually introduce it. So it's almost giving them a little taster to start with before, presenting the full program. And then, of course, a lot of schools in the UK are part of academic trusts, or in cluster groups. So it's actually connecting with those cluster groups and then doing a presentation to those cluster groups and getting the heads on board and asking if they would be happy to talk to other heads. So it's very much through referral, really. And then these are the recommendations that, for me, when you asked me the question, it was like, this is what I would recommend to people. And also for using the 6 seconds tools. And I have to admit, I did my training with 6 seconds initially in 2018. And it took me a while to feel, well, to feel confident, but also to see, well, how does how do you use the tools effectively? And for me, one of the big learnings is it's the process of using the tool that is the content. So it's not about necessarily getting too, you know, worried almost about teaching emotional intelligence or social emotional learning. It's the process through which you're doing it that has the impact. It's enabling them to feel involved, having a voice. So, and if you didn't have a tool to use, you know, it would be more difficult for that to happen. So I've sort of coined the, you know, the 6 seconds learning philosophy. So the process is the content, and sort of giving that as information to the heads. And then
It's true. Sorry if I interrupt you, because this is a very important point, because a lot of our certified, they certified on the use of the tools. And then when they need to approach as you did, the schools or businesses, often it happens that they are so worried about the tools, the assessments. And so they think, oh, I need to know everything. I need to, you know, go there and then show. And if they ask me questions about the assessment, what should I say? But again, the assessment and the measurement is just a starting point.
Yeah.
In everything that we do, right? So the EVS or DQ individual assessment, especially if they are self-assessments. So from there, sometimes we say during our courses, the scores per se are not even fundamental. If you show a trend, you are maybe, you can say the school is an area of development or in an emerging situation or best performer. We don't even care about if it is above 100, below 100, it doesn't matter. So it's, and especially it is, okay, from there, now that we measured, what can we do with this? And what does this say to us, right? Why is relevant? And absolutely, so the process actually is the content.
Yeah, and the tools give you, it gives you a start point, but it also gives you a roadmap. And it gives you a conversation. So, you know, whether you're looking at the EVS, which is looking at the whole climate, or whether you're looking at a SAY leadership report or a brain profile, it gives them something to say, well, this is where I am now. And is this working for me? You know, what might I want to do differently? So that's one of the things. And then the other thing that the feedback that I've got is the no way is the way. So it's having that, so you're showing up with no judgment. And it's like, you know, this, and like you say, Ilaria, it's not about whether you're emerging or whether you're high performing. There is no judgment. And it's like, you know, and it's just
exactly.
Be clear, this is where you are. So, and then there's the cost versus the value. And that sometimes it's very easy to think of something as a cost, but actually getting them to connect, well, you know, well, what would be the impact on your school of just a 1% improvement in the trust, or a 1% improvement in your learning outcomes? And it's like, and when they start realizing the value, then they do find the budget.
Absolutely, it's true. And also one question, sorry, Lisa, that Helen asked, if, for example, for the SAY individual question and the debrief, the teachers paid themselves, so they use their own money, or the school covered the cost of the SAY. We also said that 6 seconds supported with the grant, but it happens, right, that maybe you offered one tool that maybe is a simple one, and if they want to receive a full debrief, they, for example, can go with a session that maybe they pay by themselves.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, with the other options for funding, I mean, I am exploring working with businesses that are interested in supporting schools. So that was another thing. But the other thing is about understanding from them. There are a lot in the UK. I don't know if this is the case everywhere else, but there are lots of grants available to them for certain things. And if you can understand any little pots of money that there might be around, and some, you know, and sort of create the program so that it shows that they are addressing that particular thing that they get the grant for. So there sometimes are pots of funding that are available to them, but you need to know what they are and how to tap into them.
Exactly. So when we designed the project, Lisa, we should also have the contact with someone inside the school that can support in this sense, that can tell, okay, we can follow this program, for example, and redirect then those that budget into this project because we care for the value of this, and so yeah.
And then the cost value thing, and the one thing I want to say there is that, you know, for example, you know, I don't know if everyone knows, but in the UK, you know, the teachers are striking and they, you know, would like to be paid more and acknowledged for the hard work that they do. And actually, if a school was to give, I don't know, £50 per teacher, that £50 is not necessarily going to have a big impact on their life, but £50 per teacher investing in the training and their well-being has a far bigger impact. So it makes a little amount of money go much further. So, you know, some if they can't afford to put the wages up, actually, why not invest in their staff? And that gives a benefit in kind to the staff that is more than worth that amount of money if it was a salary.
Absolutely. So, thank you, Lisa. And so let's go to Olena and your recommendations.
Very shortly, I mean, about the marketing, we start with approaching key needs of schools, certainly. And this is the great job, which was in case of project change in 7 months, was absolutely, they did at camp, did a great job. Because they you know, they get.
So actually you were connected to this NGO. So through this organization, then you worked with schools. So
absolutely.
Right. So this can be a way. So having a direct contact with organizations working with schools.
Yeah, not only so actually, there are several experts working on this project. So the NGO is inviting us as the partners, and there are different, for instance, architectures for rebuilding the school, some people for inclusive education. So different partners in this project. Yeah, it's possible. So this is the way how I'm in this project. Okay, key needs, because you should know the pain of the schools, really, in this case, the pain of the schools. Involve maximum stakeholders. This is from our experience already, to use the potential of the tool. Please involve maximum stakeholders, I mean participants, to take part in this way, because they also be invited for the further discussions and conversation on the next stages. And when you know this pain, when you know the needs, you can address and show the value of EVS assessment result as a specific, you know, guidelines or direction for strategic changes. Because people say, okay, we would like to change. Where we go, where we want to go, what we can change. And EVS, this is like first indicators, first areas you can see, okay, this is the climate, this is this thing. This is really, I agree with you, great starting point for further big work. In our case, it will be big work. Yeah, this is shortly.
Thank you so much. And one last question I want to ask you about the both of you. If you could share with the participants one big challenge that you experienced during the project and one big success, what would you say?
For me, the one big challenge was the resistance to engage at the outset from a lot of the staff. Well, not a lot of actually the teachers, so not the admin staff. And there was that sort of, they couldn't believe that it was going to actually help, and there was quite a lot of resistance to get involved. So that was one of the biggest challenges before we actually got started. And actually there was less engagement with the first EVS than we hoped for. So that was one of the challenges. But what was the other part of the question, Ilaria? What was
one big success, or something that you can consider that you didn't expect maybe even to see?
Well, yeah, the biggest success was how quickly they flipped in that first inset day. And there was one individual, and for me, this is almost, yeah, the one of the big moments almost was when somebody stood up and they said, you know, first of all, I would like to apologize for the fact that I didn't want to be here today, and I wanted to have a day off, and and actually thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and it's really had a big impact.
Amazing.
And that was just so lovely, and it was, you know, and it's like, actually this really does, it does matter, and it does have an impact.
Thank you. Olena.
Yeah, I think about the challenges. The challenges were to collect people in one place, in safe place, because of the situation. But the challenge was to involve as many people as possible in order they can take survey. This is really a challenge in our case.
Yeah.
Because we want more students, we want more parents there, because we are mostly teachers. And that's why I mentioned this, involving stakeholders. And what about success? The success is that we start to think that climate is important. And how it's this is it's really because it's transforming. They write me messages, I mean, teachers from school and directors, and say, okay, it's transforming for us. We think other way. We start to
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is already a success.
Absolutely. So I think we are at the end of this fantastic conversation. And yeah, thank you, Helen, and all the other participants for your comments and your questions. And yes, climate is transformational. I think both of you and all of us, we truly believe that if we can start by changing the environment, not changing maybe, but supporting a better environment, introducing social and emotional learning and caring for the emotional status, the well-being of all the stakeholders, asking them to contribute and so listen to their voices. This is probably the first step that we can recommend for all of you there to approach a school, telling them that probably this is what it is needed just to understand the status of what is going on. It's just like measuring the weather. Is it raining, or there's the sun, or is hailing, or whatever? So it's really probably the most important steps. So thank you, all of you. And thank you, Olena, first of all, and Lisa, for this wonderful sharing and for your projects. And maybe if you both can put, again, your email in the chat. So if people want to stay in contact with you or contact you directly to know even more and ask even more questions, I think both of you will be very glad to share. And this is also my email, and you can see also the link to our website if you want to surf the 6 seconds website. Otherwise, contact us. It will be our pleasure to continue the conversation after this panel and webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting us, Ilaria.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe we will do a second one when at the end, and not maybe, I invite you already today now to come again and tell us you know, the end or the completion of this project, and or maybe also the new next steps that you designed together, the schools that you're working with.
Would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all the participants for being here. You will be receiving the recording. So after this session, we will send the recording out. So thank you again and goodbye. Good night. If you are all in Europe, or have a good day for all the rest. Thank you.
Thank you.